The new Maxx Slash is out, and there are some parts on here that are surprisingly new, and some parts that are surprisingly the same as on the Maxx. If you want to see every new part on this car, stay tuned, because we're going to go through all of it right now. First of all, the entire body on the Maxx Slash is brand new. That includes the body shell, as well as a bunch of skid plates on the outside of the body and reinforcements, and a cage on the inside that supports that clipless body system. The main chassis is brand new. This is what gives us that low CG. However, most of the things attached to the chassis are not. The Nerf bars are new to go along with the chassis, but the receiver box is straight off the Maxx V2. Also straight off the Maxx V2 is the battery hold down, the servo, and surprisingly you can see in this picture the front and rear lower bulkheads. We'll get into that a little bit more in just a minute. The ESC is not off the Maxx V2, but it is the standard 6S ESC that you'd find in the Sledge or the older eRevo 2.0. Rounding out the new parts for this chassis section is a new skid plate to go along with that longer, lower CG chassis. And moving on from there, we have the brand new belted tires with new foams, new wheels, new washers. However, those will be attached with the same wheel nuts we've seen previously, tying into some fairly similar drive shafts. However, these aren't exactly the same. They're going to be the same plastic style drive shaft, but they've got metal inserts where the U-joints are, which should really reinforce that area. Interestingly, even though the arms are a new part number, it looks like you'll be able to use those V1 steel drive shaft kits in order to upgrade these plastic composite drive shafts, which means I suspect those arms aren't really that heavily upgraded. Handling shock absorption duties is another surprise. These shocks are identical to the Maxx shocks. I was expecting to see at least shorter shocks using the same style of shock, but no, these are the exact same part numbers, which means any upgrades to these shocks that you can already get, such as the Pro Line shocks or VG Racing springs, should also technically be compatible with this car. The only new part on those shocks are going to be the springs. I'm not sure exactly what's different from the Maxx springs, but they're probably either a different length, different spring rate, or both. Another thing that's predictably the same are the hubs and knuckles, which means any current hub and knuckle upgrades should also be compatible, assuming they'll fit inside the wheels, which I think they will, but I can't guarantee that. Handling steering is going to be some more familiar parts. The steering links are the same, the servo saver and steering rack is the same, and the servo is the same. Moving in from there, interestingly, the front and rear bulkheads are basically identical. The lowers are the same, pretty much all the attachment point components are the same. The upper bulkheads are slightly revised, but they're similar enough that they just got an X moniker and not an actual new part number. I suspect it's just the Maxx bulkheads with the feature added for that clipless body system mount. And of course, those actual body mounts are new. Moving into the drivetrain, the front and rear differentials are identical, which means their claim of limited slip must only be referring to the differential fluid inside the differentials and not any new feature or technology. However, there is one difference in the center differential. They've added steel backing to the spider gears and a slightly revised differential housing to accommodate those. That should help prevent melting of the differential housing, but I would have liked to have seen them just go to the aluminum differential housing that's on the X-Maxx to alleviate that problem. It's a part they already had, and this is being done to save money, as opposed to just giving us a better part that already existed. The front and rear bumpers are completely new. They don't share anything with the Maxx. However, the wheelie bar components are kind of a mixed bag. Some of them are old, some of them are new. The actual adjustable mount part is new, but the wheels and whatnot have been around for quite some time. If you're enjoying this deep dive into these parts, make sure you get subscribed. I do this with every new model that comes out. I think it's a lot of fun. If you do too, you don't want to miss any in the future. Moving inward, we can see the transmission mount, the center differential, other than those small changes I said, the cush drive, the motor, and the motor mount are all the same, except for the fact that this is a 6S motor and uses that optional 6S motor mount. I was hoping to see an updated motor mount because a lot of people aren't super happy with that stock motor mount. It doesn't hold in place the best, especially if you have to remove the pins for aftermarket gears, but it is what it is. That's what we've got. However, it does appear as though they're going to be using a metal spur gear, which is nice. It is their sintered steel spur gear, which isn't quite as good as the CNC machined one, but definitely better than the plastic one we see in the Maxx. Strangely, I wasn't able to find a part number for the center drive shaft. I suspect it is new though, because it will have to be longer to accommodate that longer chassis. And as far as I can tell, guys, that's the complete list. There are a lot of new parts on here, but there are also some surprising carryovers. So what do you think about this? Do you think that these new parts are worth the $700 asking price? Other than that 6S system and maybe the belted tires, there really isn't that much to this that would justify an increased price, at least in my view. Let me know what you think down in the comments though. Do you think this is worth $700? Are you going to be getting one? Which color are you going for? Also, if you want to see a full teardown on this truck, see me bash it, make sure you get subscribed, then check out one of these videos.